So I believe that there are pros and there are cons to a potential reunion. So I am going to give you 4 reasons yes and 3 really good reasons no. 4 reasons why Buccaneers should probably take another shot at him. And 3 really good reasons as to why the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and Bruce Arians should not even entertain having Jamies Winston. Let's start with the pros first. Number 1, we should probably consider bringing Jamies Winston back because he can sling it. He can sling it. I mean, he gets a bad rap because of his turnovers, and yes, that definitely plays into the decision that you would make in bringing Jamies Winston to your team, especially back to the team that he was already with, specifically Tampa Bay Buccaneers. But let's not get it twisted. Let's not sit here and act like he cannot sling it. Let me throw some numbers by you. 22, 28, 19, 19, 33. 22, 28, 19, 19, 33. Those were the touchdowns. Those were the touchdowns that Jamies Winston was able to put up for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. 22 in his first year, 28 in his sophomore campaign, 19, back-to-back years 19. And in those 2 years, he missed some games due to injuries as well as due to suspension with his Uber incident. And then his final year, while we talk about the 30 interceptions, which is something we definitely have to talk about, the first quarterback to go 30 for 30, he did throw for 33 touchdowns, which is only 7 touchdowns less than what the great Tom Brady threw for this year and I believe last year. And he never had a QBR lower than 84. Never had a QBR lower than 84. So we're not getting a Jimmy Garoppolo who is almost, is almost incompetent of throwing the ball significantly downfield consistently. But we'll be getting somebody who knows how to throw the deep ball. He can throw it deep. He can get the ball in the end zone. He's a baller. Say what you want about Jamies Winston. Jamies Winston is a baller. It is his decision-making that confuses people. We'll get to that later, but he is a baller. He can sling it. And in this Bruce Arians, Brian Leftwich offense, you not only need a game manager, but you need someone who can actually thread the needle and move the ball downfield. That's reason number 1. He can sling it. Pro number 2, he seems to have matured during his time in New Orleans. He seems to have matured during his time in New Orleans. His QBR only started 7 games, but his QBR in New Orleans was 102.8. 102.8. He also threw for 14 touchdowns in 7 games and only 3 interceptions. Hello, you still on the line? 14 touchdowns, only 3 interceptions. I remember before we got hurt, his name was being touted and thrown around in an early top 5, top 10 MVP candidate discussion. He was also able in 7 games to put up over 1,100 yards. He put up actually 1,170 yards. And based on those statistics alone, that QBR, that touchdown to interception ratio, he was able to mature under that Sean Payton, New Orleans offense. And I believe it's because they weren't asking him to do much. They weren't asking him to sling it 50 times a game. They weren't asking him to win games. New Orleans had a pretty serviceable defense. New Orleans had a great running back, and New Orleans had some offensive weapons. And we really didn't even get a chance to see Jamies Winston link up with their number 1 receiver, Michael Thomas, and he was still able to play pretty good football. Heck, he was tearing us up. He was beating us, and then he got hurt, and then, we still ended up losing. But Jamies Winston looked mature, and he looked like he matured, and he looked pretty doggone good in a New Orleans Saints uniform. So he seems to have matured. That's pro number 2. Number 3, he gets a chance to come here with a better offensive line. We didn't have Tristan Wirfs when he was here. And although Ali Marpet has retired, I still would argue that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers is still a top 5, top 7 offensive line. And I would, it's not even an argument, it's a fact, it's the truth that the offensive line that Jamies Winston would be inheriting now in Tampa Bay is better than the offensive line that he left with. The offensive line that when he left here, we didn't have a right tackle. Now we have an all-pro and potential perennial All-Pro and future Hall of Fame right tackle, and a pretty solid offensive line. Watch this. In 2016, Jamies Winston was sacked 35 times. And in 2019, his last year here with us, he was sacked 47 times. He was sacked 47 times. And I'm sorry, I acknowledge Jamies Winston's incompetencies at the quarterback position, but I also acknowledge the fact that he's a good quarterback, or at least a decent quarterback. At worst, he's a decent quarterback. And I'm sorry, getting sacked 47 times, you're going to throw a lot of interceptions. Maybe not 30, but you're going to throw some inerrant passes when you're under that much duress. Now, that's just sacks. We're not talking about how many times he was hurt. And last but not least, reason why Tampa Bay Buccaneers should definitely consider bringing Jamies Winston back into the fold is because, say what you want, Bucs fans, Jamies Winston is better than who we currently have on our roster at quarterback. He's better than Blaine Gabbert. Blaine Gabbert, during his time as a starter, he wished he could put up the numbers Jamies Winston did. He wished he could have had the QBR. He wished he could have put up the touchdown. He was not Jamies Winston. And of course, he's better than Kyle Trask. Kyle Trask hasn't proven himself. So that's no knock against Kyle Trask. No knock against Kyle Trask because he hasn't been able to prove himself yet. But if we're just taking everything face value, Jamies Winston is a much better quarterback option than anybody that we have on our roster.